Oh, fun. I get to review one of my favorite writers' worst episode. And that's already saying a lot, since he hasn't wrote a fully good Doctor Who episode since 2005. I've seen this episode 3 times in my entire life, not including this review, and not once have I had a positive experience from it. Seriously, I can barely even fucking remember it. And you know how in my Woman Who Lived review I said that I thought that episode was the worst episode of the series? Well, that's because I fucking forgot that this episode was even real. Despite the fact that I'd already made the thumbnail for this review, and I remember most of this series fondly, I remember Series 11 more than this, and I haven't seen Series 11 since it aired, and I've seen this episode 3 times more than any of that series. But I still don't remember it. And this is probably one of those reviews that is just gonna be absolutely fucking me dreading the whole time. Because this one's just gonna fucking hurt me. I would say let's get this shit over with, but I feel like you guys don't even want me to go through this. Like, why would you want me to suffer for like 10 to 15 minutes? 15 to 20 minutes? Any of that time, so I'm just not going to. Goodbye! I reviewed most of Series 9, I might as well add another bad one, another fucking pile. Fuck everything. Right off the bat, I want to get my only praise out of the way for this episode, and that's that the production team actually tried something new with this episode. All of it is shot from characters' point of view, or the ship's security camera's quote-unquote perspective, which is a very creative way to shoot an episode of Doctor Who, and I really do wish that they tried again in the future. Just make sure that you have anyone on Earth except Mark fucking Gatiss write the episode. While I like the decision to show off who compiled all this footage together, it sort of just ruins any suspense the scenes with this character have in, because we just know that he has plot armor for the whole story. So any scenes with him in peril make me feel nothing. Feeling nothing is a good way to describe how I feel about this whole episode, to be honest. So we are then introduced to our quote-unquote characters for this episode, and I say quote-unquote because none of them really have any character, outside of one of them being against taking away sleep, and the other one being a leader. And, yeah. Doesn't this just sort of fail right off the bat as horror? Because horror episodes and movies are meant to at least have characters you care about, so when you see them die, you at least care about their deaths, or their deaths at least serve a purpose. The Empty Child, Blink, Forest of the Dead. Hell, the first episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer develops its characters well enough so that the first cliffhanger is tense, and you actually feel bad, and you feel worried, and you feel the suspense, because you don't want these characters to get hurt. Straight away I can tell this is going to be a shorter review, because this episode, more than anything, is just boring. Like, this is meant to be our introductory character scene, and my only takeaway is that they're going to die, and they don't have any personality. So I'm expected to care why? So the crew meet the Doctor and Clara, who notice way too late that people are pointing torches at them, but at least that conversation before was pretty funny and charming. Unfortunately, this is the only episode that fully features both the Doctor and Clara that they don't carry it, and it's pretty sad to say, because this episode is truly just that bad. This is the only episode from series 8 and 9 where Capaldi isn't given a good performance, and I can't really say I blame him, given that the majority of series 9 was obviously so rushed, and I feel like Capaldi didn't get to know what sort of episode they were filming with this one, because throughout most of it, he just seems so out of place and uncomfortable. That usual gravitas that even some of the worst episodes before have seemingly vanished for this episode. And that is truly unfortunate, because honestly, Clara's better than him in this episode. She doesn't even really get to do anything either.
38th century. After the Great Catastrophe, there was a tectonic realignment.
Great catastrophe? What great catastrophe?
We've got all that to look forward to, haven't you?
Gonna be honest with you, mate. I don't think that Clara is going to live for 1,700 more years. So they get chased by the first snot monster and the team get cut off. I wonder if Deepando, yes that's actually his name, I wonder if he's going to die or not. Do you even need me to show the clip of him dying? I did it anyway because fuck you, I'm suffering watching this. We then get a really obvious budget saving moment when we see Clara opening the pod and then we turn away, and then we turn back, and she gets sucked in. Wasn't I just complaining about a similar budget-saving shot in the Zygon Invasion review? I'm beginning to notice a pattern with budget-saving and rush production with this series, and I'm not sure if it's one that I like. Then they play Mr. Sandman, which I guess is appropriate for the shitty villains, but to be honest, whenever I hear this song, I can only think of Back to the Future, and how much I'd rather be watching that than this right now. Seriously, how long has it been since I watched Back to the Future? At least 4, maybe 5 years. I need to rewatch those films, they're really good. Oh, wait, what am I meant to be doing? Sorry, I keep getting distracted with future details with this episode and other shows and films in general, but seriously, this episode is so boring beyond belief, it's actually hard to pay attention to. Like, I know I at least try to use objectivity to the best of my ability in my videos, but with episodes like this, it's just really hard because boredom is the most subjective thing ever. But this episode is about as close to anything that I will call at this point in the episode, I also have to question why, between almost every single cut to a different angle, does it use this glitch effect. Like, I'm only 12 minutes in and it's already annoying me. I get that it's supposed to be found footage, but this is the fucking 38th century, and this cunt doesn't have a good version of Premiere Pro. That would be like if I used the data motion effect I use in my intros and outros between every single fucking cut. It's distracting, isn't it? Then Clara convinces the plot immune man to come out of the pod, and we get another shitty head effect. Are you fucking kidding me? Why is there so many? So we get an explanation of Morpheus, and I might as well now mention that the concept of Morphe itself is actually quite interesting. Because fucking hell, I wish I didn't have to sleep. Do you seriously think that the reviews would have been gone for almost a full year if I didn't have to sleep? But this concept loses itself when it dissolves to stupidity because of the fucking snot monsters. And it's also pretty weird that the episode paints this whole concept as being in the wrong, but like, why? Like, I get that people like to sleep, trust me, I love it. My dreams are always so fucking weird and funny and sometimes horny. But who the fuck, who likes being tired, and who likes waking up? Even when I'm not hungover as shit, I always feel awful when I wake up, and this thing removes it. I'd do that shit in a heartbeat. I would have reviewed all of Doctor Who and all of the MCU by now. After some incredibly generic cliched dialogue which you'd come to expect in any bad Doctor Who story ever, we then cut to the character no one cares about, 762, and he dies. Shame. Anyway, seriously, this scene felt so pointless because the episode literally said he was going to die when he was fucking introduced, and it literally said, don't bother getting attached. However, I feel more like this has given himself more reason to be a lazy writer. Just because you said that doesn't mean you shouldn't bother trying to make him likeable or interesting, you asinine muppet. And this whole scene just feels so tonally confused, as is it trying to be funny, making him sing the song? Because it's about as funny as Terminal 7. So the half-wit dies and the gravity shields start failing in this super intense scene.
This day's gonna get any worse!
That is not fucking funny, you retard.
Seriously, what tone is this episode going for? Baby's first horror? So the Doctor conveniently saves them just in the nick of time, because of course he does, and the political Slate One and Dum Dum Give Me Gum Gum get separated from the team for completely inconspicuous reasons. The Doctor then quotes Shakespeare for literally no reason other than to remind me of that one part of English literature that I absolutely despised. Like, cunt, I failed French partially on purpose because I don't give a shit about learning any other language and I'm awful at it. I didn't need a third of my English literature to be devoted to learning another fucking language. Fuck you! Sorry, I really hated doing Macbeth for English, and honestly, any tangents about random, loosely related things to this episode are probably the only thing helping me avoid wanting to smash that bucket so hard that my neck won't even have to brace for impact. It'll be that fucking fast. And I don't want to push my reviews back until 2023, because I get demotivated by trying to watch Sleep No More. Oh look, it's Remembrance of the Daleks.
What did you just say?
When?
1.83 minutes ago.
I said we don't have helmet cams.
I love how she can just instantly guess what he was referring to when she says this. Oh wait, no I don't, because it completely kills immersion, you idiot! At least have her sound unsure of her answer or something, for fuck's sake.
Oh, I'm not dead. You probably guessed that by now.
Yes! Don't you see? My fucking god. How can an episode have such little self-awareness as this? When did I start watching Classic Who? Don't you see how by having this guy narrate and butt in every 5 minutes, it destroys immersion because we know his character survived? When he apparently dies earlier, I feel nothing because we already know that he's fine. And then we get probably one of the stupidest scenes in this episode where Dum Dum knocks out every Twitter user ever and walks through some fire and then just fucking gives up. Like, what? The flames weren't even that high. And then the fucking idiot does what every fucking stupid, rampant, moronic, fucking imbecile does and runs towards the enemies, even though they have a fucking gun. Don't do that! Don't close the distance when you have the advantage, you gormless cheese! The Doctor then explains that the dust has been watching them, and yes, it's just as dumb as it sounds, because this is no longer a sort of found footage episode, because the dust is fucking everywhere. So the one unique thing I liked about how this episode was being shot doesn't even matter, because we can just look at everyone's point of views except the Doctor. So the one aspect of this episode that I thought was actually interesting just isn't. The Doctor then looks directly into the camera, which to me is just proof that Capaldi was confused and uncomfortable making this episode, because there was no real reason in the episode itself for the Doctor to know where that dust is so he could stare there directly. This is either extremely lucky, or Capaldi hinting to us that he knows this episode was trash, or it was just an accident because he doesn't know what he's doing here. Twitter user way too obsessed with politics then dies. Actually, you could go and, follow my Twitter while we're on the subject, I never tweet about politics. Sorry, I got distracted, fuck! So Twitter dies and they reunite with Plot Immunity Man. I think the biggest proof of how little Gatiss cared when writing this episode is when the Immunity Man claims that the Snotmen made it clear to him twice, and he doesn't explain how once. It's almost as if the story needed him to be evil so the plot can wrap itself up and just... So the big bad mystery reveal that this episode has been building up for a while turns out to be exactly the same thing as every other Snotman. Fucking hell, could you actually think of anything more boring for it to be? This episode has been the biggest fucking drag I've gone through since I reviewed Spyfall Part 1. Nothing has kept me interested or engaged in this entire 40 minutes of this episode up to this point. I genuinely feel tired reviewing this, and I'm writing this at midday. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I had a good night's sleep before this. At least with the shitty episodes before, they made me angry enough to want to continue, but this is just fucking so tedious, monotonous, uneventful, and featureless that I would literally rather do quite literally anything else than watch this. Ugh. But it's almost over. This story ends in probably one of the most boring and uninteresting yet annoying ways possible to end a Doctor Who story. And that's by having the Doctor almost start to figure it out, and I actually started liking the sound of this, as it sounded interesting, and it sounds like this whole thing was sort of staged, and that could be really cool for the characters to find out and have a discussion about. And then they just leave. No, I'm not joking. The issue isn't resolved, the Doctor and co don't get a concrete answer, and they don't care. So they just leave. Then what the fuck was the point in the last 40 minutes I just wasted watching that? And it gets even worse, as Gatiss pretty much just self-inserts himself and has the guy tell us that it was for entertainment purposes only. And none of it even matters.
I did tell you not to watch.
Well, to be honest, mate, I wish I fucking listened. So, that was Sleep No More. And oh my fucking god, that was sorry. That was Sleep No More. And fucking hell, that was absolutely terrible. And easily one of the worst episodes of Doctor Who ever made. The entire structure of this story is broken and confused tonally. It's a mess. It tries to be comedic sometimes while also playing itself super seriously, and it just fails completely. The entire thing is fucking retarded. And the same goes for the fucking characters in this episode. What the fuck are any of the characters in this episode? I don't remember any of them. They are all so dull and boring, and that even applies to the Doctor. Yes, as painful as it is for me to say this, Capaldi isn't even good in this episode. He seems so confused and uncomfortable by this episode, clearly not knowing what they're going for or how it's meant to be filmed at all. And considering the fact that Capaldi gave in his best performance as the Doctor up to this point, literally the episode before this one, it's incredibly noticeable how bad his performance is in this one. Clara doesn't even get to say or do anything interesting either. Seriously, her role in this episode is so blank that she could be replaced by literally any other blank slate Classic Who female companion and nothing would change. While I can at least commend the production team for at least trying something new with this episode, the writing, performances, and overall presentation of this episode are all absolutely fucking awful. And so boring. Try again, future showrunners, because this one fucking sucked. Up next is what should be the final payoff for Clara's arc, but isn't. And my faith in this arc and faith in this series has dwindled so much that I don't even know if I want to say that I think this episode is good or not, because I honestly don't know.
And you'll be stopping me how?